Hey, I'm Michael Dorinda,
And I'm Jake Bennett without COVID.
and welcome to episode 180 of the North Meets Southwest podcast. You
Hey,
press the button.
everybody. No, it's recording. It's recording.
No, but I didn't press the button to make the sound come out. That's right.
It's
It's
sorry. Okay,
been
I got
it's
you. I
been
got
too
you.
long since I've done this, and I don't remember how to do it. And I don't
I
even know if it
know.
did it. That's right. It'll be in the podcast anyway. So all of this will
Okay.
make no sense to anyone listening after the fact. Anyway,
No worries. Hey, folks. It is August 12th, and this is our first recorded podcast since we were at Laracon together for the first time in like 6 years. So it was a banger, man. It was super fun. Like, Laracon was
it's
amazing
great.
this year.
Yeah.
Had a great, great time. And even though neither of us spoke this year, we got to do a bunch of Laravel news stuff. And so felt like we were part of the show anyway. Like, it was just,
Yeah.
it was cool to kind of be able to report on what was going on and all the fun stuff that we were seeing there. So
Yeah.
it was just really enjoyable. Super great venue this year. It just felt it felt like a Laravel homecoming. I think a big part of it, honestly, for me was that you were there. Like, it just felt
Yeah.
like old school Laravel to me. Like, just felt like home again, honestly, which last year it
Yeah.
didn't. I don't know why. It was just odd. Really good year this year though. Super fun.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. It was great to be back. You know, there are people there are people out there who think that flying for 60 hours round trip for 2.5 days of Laracon is crazy, and you are not wrong. It is crazy. And I got
Yeah.
back and I messaged you guys in the Cash Money, and I said next year we need to do an extra day where it's just like the five of us
Yes.
and we just hang
Yes.
out for a day, because it's good to see each other. I feel like I barely saw David at all. I think he was not feeling well
Yeah.
at some point. So he just like disappeared for part of the second day.
Yeah.
And just like having not been for so long meant that I was talking to a whole bunch of people, and I was like, tagging in and out with you. And then I was over in the sponsor hall speaking to those people, people that like I've either met in the past or had passing conversations with, or who are sponsoring Laracon AU this year. And so I thought I'd better come and say hello and say thank you. And so, the 2 days disappear very quickly,
Sure.
especially
Yeah.
when you've got and then you've got the ancillary conversations, like people coming up and saying hello. Appreciate everyone who did come up and say hello, and thank you for the podcast. It's nice to know that, like, as much as you and I do this so that we've got something to talk about, and that we can like stay in touch, especially for like all of these years that we've been doing this, to stay in touch together. It's nice to know that there are people out there listening as well, and appreciate the conversations that we have as well. So thank you to the people that came up and said hello to me, and I assume you as well. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun to be involved with the Laravel news stuff with Eric, and to do like the Vox Pops and the man in the crowd kind of thing, and to
Yeah.
like sit down for the first time ever face to face and record podcasts together,
Right.
and
Yes.
like to figure out that after 7 or 8 years that we've been doing this, that mistakes still happen, and I still managed to go through an entire recording with my microphone switched off, unfortunately.
You knew it had to happen at some point. Something like that crazy was going to
Yeah,
happen.
for
I think
sure.
the editor kind of made it work as much as he could. But yeah,
Yeah,
it was fine. It was fine. We also got to meet Harris Raftopoulos, the
yeah,
dude
that
who
was
writes
cool.
so many of the articles on Laravel News, which was really fun. Yeah, but I agree. I think I heard that same sentiment from a lot of people, which is like, oh man, we just need like another day.
Yeah,
It was cool too because this year in the Laracon or Bust group chat and Telegram, that was really active. And so even on that following morning, the Thursday morning, which is usually like when the Laracon blues just set in. Like, it's just like,
mm,
oh man, it was super fun. And
yeah.
now and everybody's sort of dispersed and going their ways. I had set a message out there and was like, hey, if anybody wants to come for coffee over at our hotel, like, and so there
Yeah,
was
I
like, there
saw
would
you
be like
managed to get a whole
15,
bunch of people to come over to your hotel.
seriously, like 15 or 20 people, like between, the morning and the afternoon came over. It was really fun. So it was like our
Mm.
own little after party. So that was super enjoyable. And then we all kind of departed one at a time. Some of us ran into each other at the airports because we were still keeping in touch on Telegram. So yeah, it was just super fun. So, and for you, Laracon AU is right around the corner, man. How are things going with that?
Yeah, like it's still 3 months, so it's 92 days today. because we look. I know that off the top of my head because I looked yesterday, and we're scheduling some EDMs to go out, and so yeah, it's coming up quick. We're finalizing our merch stuff at the moment, so our supplier
Oh, that's
for
cool.
attendee merch and all of the premium swag that we're doing this year is just getting some pre-production samples together because we kind of got to a point where you can only look at the designs on the screen so much before you need
Yeah.
to see and
Get a
feel
sample in your
things in
hands.
your hands.
Yeah.
So we've got like we're doing a hoodie as part of the premium merch this year, and we've
Love
got
that.
three different, like slightly different designs. And it's now at the point where I need to see it because I need to see like how does this feel to wear and how does it look in the
Yeah.
flesh. So, we've got those coming. We've got the t-shirt designs locked in, which if you saw me at Laracon or you saw me in
Yeah, they
Denver,
look
I
really
was
good.
wearing I was wearing this year's attendee shirt. So pretty happy with that. That was just like a quick and dirty trial print that we did, not the one we're actually going to have this year. And a few other bits and pieces that we're going to share what is in the premium swag bundle once we get those items in and we can actually have some photos of the real thing rather than the mock-ups. So very excited with how that's all going. Ticket sales are ticking along. I was talking to Hank and Sam from Laravel earlier today, actually, and they're like, how's it going? I said, it feels slow, but we're actually ahead of where we were in ticket sales last year, like day for day. So we're on day 70 of sales or something like that. And we're actually ahead by a handful of tickets on what we had
What
last
are
year.
you up to
So
now? How many ticket sales do you have now?
we're over half at this point. I don't know
Okay,
what the
great.
exact number is, but yeah. So like we've sold over half. We've still got 3 months to go. We just extended early bird, so we've had really good response from obviously the community, people buying their tickets. We've had a really good response from sponsorship as well this year. So we've opened up a few more tickets for early bird, and we've expanded it. So initially, we had kind of restricted the early bird to individuals and people that were paying their own way to attend Laracon, and now that's kind of reached a point where we're like, okay, we're comfortable that people that were going to buy their own tickets have bought their own tickets, and so we've expanded that to smaller teams and things like that. People that bought 2, 3, 4 tickets can get in on the action now as well. So if you're listening and you haven't bought your ticket yet, we've still got some additional capacity, and those will be available until they're sold out. We're not going to put an end date on it now. So if that is the end of this month, then that's the end of this month. If it's September, then it's September. So they'll just be available until they're no longer available.
Yeah. Okay, so are you ready for a quick change? It's the same topic, but just a different
Mm-hmm.
perspective. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I know that Caleb and Daniel on their 20% timer, no plans to merge, which it's been forever, 6 months since they've recorded. They just recorded
At
a new
least.
episode and I've been listening
Nice.
to it and it's been, oh my gosh, so freaking funny. I'm laughing the whole time. It is just a riot, like to listen to
Amazing.
those guys riff off.
Off of one another.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, they've talked about this Livewire conference that they want to do in
Uh-huh.
Buffalo. So they're
Uh-huh.
talking about venues, they're talking about sponsors, they're talking about all this stuff that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And myself and Ben Holman, hopefully I'm not blowing the lid off of anything, but we're just talking about it, right? We had said it would be really fun if we could do something in the spring in the Midwest. We used to do it Laracon online, right? We would get everybody together and do all
Yeah.
that, which is really
Mm-hmm.
fun, very enjoyable. But when we're at the Laracon, it's like, man, it would be really nice if we could do this more than just once a year. So, and there's so many developers that I met that are from the Midwest. They're
Yeah.
they're all around, southern Wisconsin, and they're Indianapolis guys, and St. Louis, and Chicago, and there's so many people just from within a couple hours driving distance of where we're at,
Mm-hmm.
and and so I'm like, man, Ben messaged me and he's like, hey, I was thinking about what you said. We should really do that. So that being said, I'm curious. You have so much knowledge sort of locked up in doing, not you're not doing the 1,000-person Laracon, but you're
No.
doing more of like what a person would be doing if you had a 1 or 2 man team to kind of run something
Mm-hmm.
like this.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, like, what do you use for like what platform do you use for like your ticket sales? This is probably worth a whole episode. but like,
Yeah.
what's your strategy for like getting sponsorships? Like, I think that there's enough people that are out there that are just considering even doing some of these little mini conferences that would be really interesting for you and I just to kind of talk through your strategy and like things that you've learned that have worked well for you,
Hmm.
um, and how to go about organizing a little mini conference on your own. Not a meetup, like a
Yeah.
mini conference.
Yeah.
So
The
let's start with
sponsorship.
like the
Yeah.
ticket thing. I'm
Oh
curious
yeah.
with the
Yeah.
ticketing and sponsorships. Like
Yeah.
so ticketing. What do you use for ticketing?
So ticketing, we're using the same platform that US use. So we're on Ticket Tailor,
Okay.
and
Okay.
they charge you. So there's two ways of doing it. They either charge like a percentage of each ticket, and you have the option to either like absorb that as part of your operating costs
Yeah.
or to pass it on at the time of the transaction. Or you've got the ability to purchase like, if you're going to sell 400 tickets to an event, you can purchase a block of like 400 tickets, and then this would deduct, and then it ends up being a bit cheaper that way. I think it ends up being 90 cents or 80 cents per ticket that you
Okay.
pay.
So that's not bad. Yeah.
Um, that's then hooked up to Stripe. So obviously Stripe takes their cut, and then any like sales taxes. I don't know how that works for you guys over there, because I think your
Sure.
taxes vary based on where the transactions are happening. I think not where you're. Anyway, whatever that is. So those things that you factor in, and then you like go from there. So, but yeah, Ticket Tailor is what we're using. Depending on what you're pricing it, you might look at Luma, because I know that Laravel
Luna.
used
Yeah.
Luma for like the mostly technical
After
party
party.
and the
Yeah.
after dark as well, which is like free to use up to some number of
Okay.
attendees for zero
That would
dollar
be
tickets.
interesting.
So it
And
depends
it's
on
got all
if you're
the
planning
yeah.
on charging, or if you're yeah, doing it for free.
And I think it probably, I'm trying to think through the order of operations here for kind of how you decide these things. Cause it's like, you've got a couple things, right? You have to decide, number one, how much you're going to, what it's weird because they all are dependent variables.
They
What
really are.
size venue do I need? Right. And depending on
Hmm.
what size venue do I need, I have to figure out, depending on location, do I provide lunch? Do I cater lunch? Do I have food trucks come? Do I have people go get their own lunch? Right. So that works into ticketing pricing. How many people do I think I'm going to get? So how many sponsors am I going to need? Am I going to fly speakers in? If I am, I'm going to need more sponsor dollars. So it's like it's literally all intertwined, right? And so
Yeah.
it's sort of tough. And I'm not sure exactly which variable you put into place first. I think you probably say, here's venue and like lock in, this is the maximum size. This is the maximum
Yeah.
amount of people. And then I guess you probably sort of gauge interest and say, we think we could get around this many people there. Because maybe the venue holds 100, but you think you only have enough interest to kind of get 50 people there, maybe,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah.
you probably lock that in first and then you kind of go from there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, yeah. So when we started, we found essentially the smallest venue that we thought we could fill, and went from there. So I think when we
Mm-hmm.
started back in 2018, we went for like 200, 250. Like it was a small venue. And the venues that we looked at, we try and find like an all-in venue so that it has AV, it's got seating. The only thing we didn't have was like a proper foyer and space for mingling, which over
Yeah.
time obviously mingling and networking is a big part of why people come to these events. So it's something that you need to consider wanting, whether you're going to facilitate it. And with the benefit of hindsight, I would say certainly facilitate it if you can. So you decide that how many people you think you can get there, and then you start looking for venues from there. You start speaking with sponsors to see if there's any interest in doing this kind of thing, because you need to know that it's going to be commercially viable, because it is an expensive thing to do. Um, you don't, basically when I started it, the intent was for like we don't need to make money, but I don't want to dip into my own pocket for anything.
Totally. Yeah. Right.
So if we come out of it with $0, that's fine, but it hasn't cost me anything. Now that may be
Yeah.
different, if you've got Ben involved and Zillow throw in some coin like that, that could be a good starting point,
Right.
especially if they can pay like a venue deposit, because you're going to want to
Yeah.
get a venue. Now,
Well, can I interrupt for just a quick second?
of
Here's
course
the
you can.
cool thing. For us, the really interesting part about this is that Wilbur, the company I work for, has a venue. we already have an
Solid.
auditorium that has AV, live streaming, cameras all set to go, sound, all that's hooked up, music, everything's good with that. So we
Right.
have a venue locked in, which is pretty cool. That costs us $0.00.
Done.
Um, which
Make
is
that the
a
venue. Don't even look
huge,
around.
right? I agree. Like that's kind of where I'm at. And it's like we've got parking, we've got all that stuff sort of that solves that problem, which is a huge like piece of the puzzle out of the
Mm.
way.
Yeah.
And so
It's a
then
big
it's
hurdle,
like,
especially
okay,
if you're looking at spring. Like if you're looking
yeah.
at, oh, well, spring would then be what, March,
Yeah, it'd be a January,
March,
February,
April
honestly,
next year.
probably is what
Yeah.
I'd look
Yeah.
for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be fine because that gives you sort of 6 months to sort it out. I would be mindful, like you don't want to go too close to Laracon US. That's obviously, especially if you're doing
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
in the US. You've got to
Right.
be mindful of like the other events. For meetups, they can happen every month. They can be like they can coincide with conferences. Like they can
Yeah.
coincide with Laracon EU or US or a Laravel Live. For something, if you're looking at a bit bigger, if you're looking at 200 people, say, I would try and steer it away from other larger events. There's obviously room globally to do this kind of stuff, but I think from my perspective, there's certainly capacity to have one a month somewhere in the world. And really, it's only 10 months of the year because you're probably not going to do too much in January and you're not going to do too much in December.
Yeah.
Because people take time off for Christmas and New Year and whatever else. So
Right.
really, that gives you
Yeah.
February through November. Laracon AU is in November. Um, Laracon US is in July, August. Laravel Live Denmark is in August. Laravel Live UK is in June. I think there's like, and Laracon EU and Laracon India are like February, March. So you can find a pocket in there
I
to
would
do
think
it.
like late January is kind of what. So really, like the
Yeah.
sweet spot that landed for us that we thought was really helpful was like the Laravel Online, which was like split right in the half of the year after
Yeah. Yeah.
Laravel US,
Yeah.
right? And so that seemed to land really well for us. And like you said, it spaces that stuff out. And honestly, for me, you used the word like 200. I'm like, man, if I had anything over like 30 people, I'd be absolutely ecstatic.
Yeah.
It's like, and honestly, I'm more like looking at who's going to be willing to make a drive. Some people could fly in. We actually have two airports. We have an airport in town, and then we have another airport within 40 minutes of here. And we have ORD, like O'Hare, like 2 hour drive
Yeah.
from our location.
Yeah.
So it's pretty accessible. But yeah, I would be really happy if we even just had a small start to it. So on the sponsor side, I think what you mentioned, which I didn't even think about, is pretty cool. Like the idea of saying Zillow could throw some coin in, Wilbur could throw some coin in, and then Laracon or Laravel is also sort of committing to trying
Doing
to
some
fund
stuff.
some
Yeah.
of these things as well, right? It sounds like they're setting some money aside to sort of do some of this stuff too.
Mhm.
And so I think between those things, we could, again, since the venue's already paid for, we're basically talking about getting people to pay for speakers. So like if we wanted to fly some speakers in and put
Yeah.
them up, we're
Yeah.
talking probably about like, I know for you, like with AAU stuff, I mean, how much does that look like it costs you per speaker? Because you're talking about flying people in. But if you're
Yeah.
doing domestic flights and you're putting somebody up, about like what do you typically budget for that per speaker?
So, however many days, like if you're just doing one day, then I'd put them
Mm-hmm.
up for 2 nights, the
Yeah.
night before and the night of, so that they don't have to like rush out of there. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we do 3 nights, 2 nights for the conference and then the night before. And then for international speakers, we give them an extra day because they need a chance to recover from
That's a
travel.
good idea. Yeah. Yeah.
So whatever it is, we do conference day or days plus one. And then I look like nationally and say, okay, if you were coming from here or there or whatever, like how much would it cost to basically cover their flights? So our intent is like you don't pay for flights, you don't pay for accommodation. If you want to have like extra days, you can tack that on and pay for it yourself. But these are the days that we are covering.
Yeah.
And like some people will take that. Some people will have like their employer pay for it, or if they're running their own business, whatever, they might cover it. But we budget for every speaker. We cover them. Like I don't want them to pay to come if we can help it.
Agreed. Yeah. Agreed.
That's entirely up to you. And then
Yeah.
speaker dinner is a nice to have. Like they're
Yeah.
coming. Okay, let's feed them as well. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, catering, like not having to pay for a venue is a big win.
Yeah.
A venue is typically on the smaller side of expenses. Catering is where you are going to find that things suddenly become very expensive.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Like as an example, our catering budget for this year is like 4 or 5 times what we paid for our venue when we were in
Dang.
Sydney. Right? Catering, like
So that's
food,
where
is expensive.
that's where your expenses go to die is catering, huh?
Yeah. I don't know
Okay.
what it is about caterers, but like if you want good food, if you want a dry sandwich or something like that no one like eats, then you could
Yeah,
probably do
sure.
it fairly cheaply. But like the food, the food that they had in Denver this year, like that would not have been cheap because there was options. There was like everyone had food. There was the snacks as well in the breaks and things like that. Coffee running all day,
Yeah.
Coke Zero all day, like
Yeah. Yep.
and for 1,100 people, like that adds up very quickly.
Yeah. So that's probably where the majority of it would go if you needed to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's obviously going to be very, very largely dependent on the number of people that you have and all that.
Yeah. And like
Okay.
you also consider um will are there food options nearby? Like can you be like, okay, we're not going to do it, but like we're going to go and eat here kind of thing. Which
Yeah.
is what we did in Sydney. We had a theater that was inside of Darling Quarter, which had 30 or 40 different eateries and a 5-minute walk. There was a whole bunch more, which was a consideration. But again, you run the risk when you do that of then killing any networking opportunities because people come in their
Exactly. Because
groups,
they
they
got
live
to
in their
go separate
groups.
ways. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone
Exactly.
goes separate ways, and like you can only have so many people. So catering is like a necessary evil in terms of hosting these events. But you could do like share plates and things like that, especially if it's like 30 or 40. People are probably more amenable to that than if it's like 100 or 200. People probably want their
Yeah.
own thing.
Yeah. So that's super helpful. I think that that gives me a lot of sort of information to kind of go back and chat with Ben about.
Mm. Yeah,
But
if you have
man,
any
I just think it would
questions
be
and you're like pursuing it,
absolutely.
like yeah,
Yep.
happy to talk you through it. Talk to Ben,
Yeah. Yep.
and yeah, definitely reach out to like Samantha as well and at Laravel.
Yeah. I think I'll definitely reach out to Sam. I think I just started. I can't remember if I DM'd her on Twitter. I might have. Um, but uh, the other part of it too was we wanted to provide an opportunity for people who don't feel like they're ready to get onto the big stage yet, but who would still love to give talks. And
Yeah,
Laracon Online used to be a good starting point for that. Laravel Worldwide Meetup is a great spot for that too. PHP
yeah, for
Tech,
sure.
some of these other ones, those are good too. But uh, yeah, wanted to provide that opportunity for other people as well. I know there's some guys on my team who I think would do an amazing job speaking, but it's pretty intimidating to kind of tackle
Yeah,
that
you
big
gotta
stage as
you gotta
like the
get out there
first
first,
go.
and yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Now I just went straight to the thing. I just was like, this is it. First one, let's go. Boom.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if
It's not for
that's
everyone, but like
it's
some
not for
people,
everyone.
they do. Some people, like I would be happy to get up on that stage and do a talk. But for other people, they need to work their way into it,
Yeah.
and this meetups, Laravel, like we emailed all the people that didn't make it through our to like speak at Laracon AU. I spoke with Margaret from Vehicle at Laracon US, and we emailed all of those people and like, hey, if you're still interested, like this is not the end of your speaker journey. Take the submission that you have already made, go and give it a Laravel Worldwide Meetup. It's another place that will get you some exposure and some practice in doing it. So I love that for smaller events and meetups to exist so that people still have the opportunity because there's you know everyone basically we had 60%, I think, of our submissions were like, I could have put any of these
Yeah.
into our lineup this year. Um, and it's like, it's unfortunate that you can't have 60 speakers at a conference,
Right.
but
Right.
there are definitely opportunities and avenues and events that people can give those talks at still. So
Sweet, man. Well, I'm excited. I think it's definitely a possibility. Even if it's just a little bit bigger version of a meetup.
yeah,
The other thing that was interesting was like, what do you call it? Because you have Laravel, you have the Laravels, or sorry, Laracons, right? Laracon US, EU, AU, India, and then you have like Laravel Live UK, Laravel Live Denmark, and then you have like Laravel Greece, I think is the
Yeah,
other
then
one
you've
that
got like the
Harris.
Laravel meetups. Yeah,
So like Laravel Greece is like that. Is that a meetup? Is that a
yeah.
live? What is live? What is
That
Laravel live? Like where does
yeah,
that fit?
yeah.
You know,
I
how,
did
what are the
I did
sizing
speak.
things?
Yeah, I did speak to Hank very briefly backstage, like long enough to say, "I've got a crazy idea. We should talk about this later." Get a photo, and that was basically it. But there is, I think they're trying to figure out like how they tier these things, like in some official capacity, and so it'd be interesting to see how that comes out. In the coming weeks and months, however long. I don't know what timeline they're going to do on that, but yeah.
Yeah.
But like meetup is a funny thing as well because like before Laracon India existed, they had a Laravel meetup, which was like 400 people. So it depends
Right.
on the market and all of that
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
stuff. The Laravel Greece, I think, is like 100 people, but it's still
Yeah.
it's a meetup kind of thing. So
Yeah. Right. And so that's interesting. I don't know. Yeah. So I'm not sure exactly what we would call it, but anyway, if any of you out there are interested in this and are, wanting to say, yes, you have my vote for going forward and we would be interested in attending Central Illinois, shoot me a message. I would love to hear from you. That'd be great. So sweet. Thanks, dude. All right. We are at
that's right.
25 minutes. My goal is to be asleep tonight at 10:30, which is like 45 minutes from now. So we got plenty of time. But I do have to read part of my book before I go to bed because it is
Oh,
really good. Station
oh,
11,
okay.
new book
Station
that I just
11.
started reading. Actually, okay. Tell me if I'm a scumbag. Are you ready? Okay. Here's my story. We're on our
You going to
way.
tell me something before I? Oh,
No, yeah.
okay. I know Station 11. There was a TV series. So I know, but
My
continue.
buddy just recommended the TV series, and I was like, I
Yeah.
don't have HBO Max, and I'm like,
Oh.
but I remember seeing this book cover like 10 years ago.
Mm,
I
mm.
don't think that's an exaggeration. I think it was pre-COVID that this book was
Yeah.
published.
Right. So the book was pre-COVID. The
Yeah.
series they started filming in 2019, and then they had to delay it. So
Oh, no
when I
way.
watched it, because I
Interesting.
watched
Oh,
it.
how funny is that?
No, I
Because
watched it earlier this year. I know. I watched it earlier this year. Because Kitzer, who is responsible for Sizzy, the
okay.
responsive web design application, he
Yeah.
mentioned it earlier this year, and I watched it, and it was only 10 episodes. It's one season, and I was like, a few things could have gone slightly differently in 2020, and things could have been very, very different.
Oh, totally. And I mean, so for anybody who's uninitiated, so Station 11 is essentially it's there's this pandemic. There's this global pandemic and, it wipes out a bunch of people. And then it was like and then it happened, you know what I mean? Not to the same
Yeah, then it actually
extent.
happened. Yeah.
It actually happened. And now what's so funny is like reading this, like in this book, I'm not giving anything away. The premise is in the foreword of the, book, so it's fine.
Mhm.
But in this book, the virus is insanely fast spreading and kills the host within like 2 days, right? So it's like very, very fast. What we actually found out in COVID is that it's more dangerous if you don't show signs during the first period because you don't know you're a spreader, right?
Right.
So it's very actively spreading while you don't know you have it. That's actually
Right.
more dangerous, and
That's
then
right,
it becomes apparent after.
until you get back home after 4 flights and
Totally, exactly.
and
That's
2 nights,
what's.
and you're like, oh.
But who would have guessed? Who would have guessed that would have been the more dangerous of the viruses? Is one that
Yeah.
doesn't present itself immediately, but has a high R factor or whatever. So
Because you're
anyway,
incubating it and spreading
yes,
it before you have any
yeah,
symptoms, and by then it's too late because you
too
spread
late.
it to how many people.
Yep. So anyway, I do have to read some of that book tonight. I'm like 65% through, and I don't know, dude. I might finish it. I have no idea. So maybe I won't be in bed by 10:30. But I say all that to say, like, we probably have to keep moving on this if we want to get to anything else. So, there was something else I was going to talk about, which I can talk about. It's sort of a continuation of what we talked about last time, with some of this permissions stuff. If you remember any of that, do you remember kind of our discussion of that?
Yeah, I remember where we landed. That you wanted to build the app that oversees all of the apps where you can allocate the permissions. The permissions are coming out of Active Directory, and the idea being that your team doesn't have to be responsible for assigning them; they can be all managed out of Active Directory by IT.
That's right. Now we have no idea what roles there are anymore. All we look at is permissions, right?
Yep, perfect.
Now here is the interesting caveat to this, right? It's not that roles don't exist. It's that we don't manage them and we're also not aware of them. However, they exist in the real world, just not in our application. Why do I say that? Why do I bring that up? Because if I'm wanting to see in my local development environment what a manager sees, how do
Mhm.
I know what permissions they have? Right? This is a complicated problem.
Yeah.
Because previously the problem was that all the magic was locked up in our application. And so IT, anytime they needed to know what permission to give somebody, they had to ask us, which is a huge pain in the butt. So we're switching that model completely. We're turning it on its head and we're saying, IT, you don't have to ask us anymore. You have everything you need in order to assign all the permissions. But now we have the reverse problem, which is that we don't know what roles have what permissions.
Mm.
Right? Now, the good news is we have the ability to build tools to assist us, and IT is less so, right? They have the knowledge to do IT stuff, but they don't necessarily have the software development stuff to be able to build tools for themselves to solve these problems. So I think we're still on the right side of the equation. You were going to say something though,
Mm.
so I wanted to give you a chance to.
Yeah.
What were you
I
thinking?
mean, does it matter that you know what the roles are or not? Like, if you're
Sort
checking
of.
permissions, do you need to know that like this manager has access to these permissions, or is
Not
that like
not in
not?
Yeah, not in the application we don't. So like the
Mm.
application code does not need to matter. No, not at all that. However, if I as a local developer am trying to imitate what a manager or an admin or whoever else might see,
Mhm.
I don't have anything to base my list of permissions off of. So if a manager is
Yeah.
having a problem and I say, "Okay, I need to imitate myself as a manager." What does that mean?
Yeah.
Like that role actually exists in the real world. It just doesn't exist
Yeah.
in my application's code, but it does
Because you don't
exist
know. Yeah. You don't
outside of
know.
me.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, user impersonation is probably the quote unquote easiest way because you're like, all right, this person is having this problem. I can log in
yeah.
now. Depending on
Yeah, so
environment, that could introduce compliance issues.
right, cuz so you basically what you're saying is you'd have to and this was our first swing too. Is like you'd have to go in to the live database and be able to see, okay, well what permissions does this user have? Or pull down that user's permissions and then imitate them locally or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And yes, fair enough. That's true. You could do that. Um, or if you're developing a feature and we're saying like, hey, we want admins only to have access to this thing. Okay, how do you do that?
Yeah.
So that's the trick, and I do have a solution for it
Mhm.
that I've thought through, but I'm interested in hearing what I'm gonna shoot the idea to you, and you tell me what you think. Does that sound fair?
Go
Okay.
for it.
We have all the groups in AD, all the security groups are prefixed with app underscore, all of them. So for every one of our applications, we have app underscore and then the name of the application. So let's just say one of our applications is named core, which it is. So
Mhm.
all the security groups have app underscore core underscore, and then they're followed either by a role, manager, or an ability like can see reports, something like that, right? So
Mhm.
there's this hierarchy, there's this structure in AD that we can query using AD LDAP to give us a hierarchy of here is app underscore core. And underneath that, here are the roles. And underneath each one of the roles is all the permissions, right? We can
Yeah.
query that. And we already have the ability to do that because we do that through our own. We have a mechanism and a website that's out there that sort of does all that stuff already. It interfaces with
Mhm.
LDAP. So what we did is we built an endpoint that we can essentially send along, hey, here's the app I'm looking for. Give me back the hierarchy of what's available. And then my local development team can say, and that's an unguarded endpoint. It doesn't matter. Like I don't care that anybody knows what the group names are. It
Right.
doesn't make any
Right.
difference.
Yeah.
We can then in our local development environment, I can build as part of our local development tool chain the ability to call out to that, get me back the permission hierarchy for those particular user types, roles, and then I can just
Mhm.
locally say, yeah, I want to be that type of person, and then it pulls it in. And the great thing about that is it's up to date real time with the
Yeah.
reality of what's
Mhm.
actually being used in production, which seems like a
Yeah. I
pretty
think
good
so.
way to do it, I think.
Yeah.
You have to
Because
be
you
hooked
could
up to the
go.
VPN to talk to the real thing.
Mm.
You know what I mean? You actually have
Mhm.
to be talking to the real thing is the only trick.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want
So
it
if
to
you're on
be
an
real time,
airplane
of
or
course.
something, I mean, yeah, if you want it to be real time, right? You could probably
Yeah.
cache it down or something, or sort of say like, you could almost do like a snapshot, like give me a
Yeah.
snapshot of it, like update the snapshot, maybe.
Yeah. You only need it to be temporary, really, because
Right.
it's not like you'll be doing it all the time. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
probably enough to just grab that information and then, yeah, I don't, because like you would say, okay, this person is having a problem. You'd go and find all of their roles, or you go and find that user specifically, which would then return all the
Yeah.
permissions from that endpoint, and then you can assign yourself those permissions locally or that
Yeah.
role locally, and yeah, I mean it's probably a better solution than logging in as that user. I mean, the outcome is the
Yeah.
same, but you're not, because then there's nothing that ends up in the access log. So like Jake has logged in as this user, and then now
Right.
Jake is
Right.
running around as this other user and doing
Yeah.
things, and then this other person, like, I didn't do any of that. Jake was here, so
Totally. And
yeah.
I don't have to give that to like my most junior developer either if I want them to go troubleshoot a problem or dig into something.
Mhm.
That's pretty dangerous territory if I'm like giving,
Yeah, definitely.
manager access to a junior developer who can kind of go put like modify somebody's employee records or something. That'd be,
Yeah.
you don't want to do that, obviously.
Yeah.
Um so
Yeah,
yeah.
because
I mean, I
mean,
think
I assume that you do not have access to LDAP directly, so you can't go into Active
correct.
Directory and click around. Yeah, which
That's
makes
right. That's
sense.
right. Yeah, only the IT guys have access to that. I've even
Yeah,
removed myself access for myself for that, so I don't have to like. There's never
yeah.
a question. Like
There's no
it was never
temptation.
my fault. Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
that's
not
right.
temptation, but like it's
Or
never.
yeah,
There's paper trail for all that stuff.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. That makes sense. I off the top of my head, I can't think of anything else, and it sounds like a solution that works for you in terms of like, okay, now I know what these roles and permissions are. I can go and assign them to a user and figure out what needs to be done.
yeah,
Yeah.
I do have one other one which we can talk about next time because I don't want to take this too much further. But here's the last sort of. We've talked about leases already, right? Which is basically one-off permissions that you could apply to a user. You would never
For a
do
period
that
of
in
time.
AD,
Yeah.
but you could do it in a lease permission. And you could like say purge all leases, and it would remove all those, or they're
Hmm.
only
Hmm.
available for a limited amount of time. But
Yeah.
the other piece is delegated access, right? So
Uh-huh.
when we're talking about somebody's out of the office and I want to appoint a delegate to act on my behalf, so I'm leaving for the week and Michael, I'm going to give you the ability to interact on my behalf, but it's not imitating me because I don't want
Yeah.
you to pretend to be me. I want you just
Yeah.
to be able to see my team members as I see them. You know
Hmm.
what I mean?
Hmm.
Or I want you to be able to see things that are assigned to me that are my
Yeah.
responsibility to do. But since you're my delegate, you're going to do them for me on my behalf. But it's going to record them as you having done them, not me.
Yeah.
So that's a tricky problem.
Yeah.
And
Because
it's solved in like
it's not just sharing, like taking a copy of my permissions and then like leasing them to you, or it's not you taking a copy of your permissions and leasing them to me for a period of time. It's then also saying you've got these permissions and you can see my thing. So you've got to give like
yes,
the owner record information across as well. So when
yes,
you're
which is
doing all of
tricky.
your like scoped queries, it's not
Right,
just request
exactly.
user, it's request user and then like a chained on when or a query
Delegate,
scope. It's
yeah,
like, yeah. So that the delegate's there. So it's like I get all of my stuff and I also get all of your stuff for the
that's right.
duration of this delegated access.
You
Mm.
got it. That's exactly right. So it's a tricky one. And I think, really for anybody who's building internal tools, you will probably end up at this point. Now, the way what we've basically set up to this point is either we just give them admin access for a period of time and we say don't screw around with anybody else's stuff that's not yours, which is a
Hmm.
possibility. But as you
Hmm.
grow in size, that no longer becomes a viable solution. You can't do that everywhere.
Yeah.
There are just things that are too sensitive that you can't, like, if we're talking about HR coaching logs, like you can't give people that. It's a violation of
Yeah.
HIPAA stuff. You can't do that. And so
Hmm.
you have to come up with other solutions. And so once you've grown to a certain size, you have to be able to do sort of things like this. Like, okay, hey, I'm going to be leaving. I need somebody to approve my team members' time clock stuff or approve time off.
Hmm.
You have to be able to delegate. Now, you're not going to change who their manager is for a week. You're not going to do that.
No.
You have to be able
No.
to delegate it for a week. Now, other thing, people have solved this. Microsoft has solved this. Paycor, our time clock thing, they've solved this. Like people have solved this problem, but we just
Yeah.
have to figure out how we want to solve it in our own
Yeah.
internal applications. So anyway, it's an interesting problem, and it's been fun to think through this one. I do have some solutions, but I can share those maybe next time.
Yeah. Next time. I think so. Cool.
Sweet. Thanks
Feels
for
like
letting
a
me
good
bounce
place
some
to wrap
ideas
it.
off you, dude. And thanks
It's
for
all right.
the stuff on the conference side of things. I think that's
Yeah.
going to be really, really helpful moving forward. So
For sure. Keen to
rock
see how
on.
that plays out.
Yeah. Yeah. What episode were we on?
180.
180, folks. Find show notes for this episode at northmeetsouth.audio/180. Hit us up on Twitter, on X, on Blue Sky, at Michael Dorinda, at Jacob Bennett, or North South Audio. Of course, if you like the show, we'd really appreciate it if you'd rate it up in your podcatcher of choice. 5 stars would be amazing. Folks, until next time, we will see ya. Peace.